Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty show. And right now we're going to be talking about our wide receiver buys. And it's a great time to get out there and look at your league mates and see what wide receivers might be available to you out on the open market, especially if you're contending. Look at those wide receivers. I'm sure you have some injuries that have happened. Just about everybody's had some injuries to their team this year. And so we've got some wide receivers that are exciting and maybe cheaper than you think. So let's get started with Mr. Brian Thomas. He might not be cheap, but Matt, what are your thoughts on, let me bring him up here. Okay, here we go.
Yeah. On Mr. Brian Thomas?
There we go.
I love Mr. Brian Thomas.
Brian Thomas. Yes, you do.
So I don't have as many shares of him as I should, but I was fortunate to get him in both of my my auction leagues. So he's been paying mass dividends because he wasn't even a projected starter. But I've got Cup out, so he's filled in very nicely for me. And then in the other league, he's just taken over a starting role because he is one catch away from just blowing up the week. One catch away from blowing up the whole week.
Absolutely. And he did that this last week with the 85-yard touchdown, ended up going over 100 yards for the first time this year. And he's up to Dynasty wide receiver number 8.
Yes.
And climbing. I mean, if he has another big week, who knows? This is a guy who many were questioning the wide receiver 4 tag of this rookie class, of course, behind Marv, Neighbors, and Adunze. So then you had Brian Thomas in the mix with the Lad McConkey, Keon Coleman, Xavier Worthies. I said, no, I love this guy. But many put it out there, hey, he was just a one-hit wonder at LSU. And I looked at that, but then I looked at, 6'2", 209. You can't teach that. You can't teach the speed and the downfield ability and the, going up the ball catch radius this guy has. I mean, he's just a monster out there right now, Matt.
Yeah, like I said, he can be a one. What did he do last week? How many? He had 5 catches, but for the longest time it was 2 catches for almost 100 yards and a touchdown. And if he did nothing else for the rest of the game, you would have been totally satisfied, right? But then he packs on a few more catches, gets you well over 100 with the touchdown, and throws on another 5-6 points on top of it. If you get bonuses, maybe he hits you a bonus or something. But if you got this guy, you've got to be excited about having him. If you don't have this guy, you're going to have to pay to get it. But from a dynasty standpoint, if you have the capital and you can afford it, your situation provides the perfect formula, then yes, you need to go get him. You need to go get him because I really don't think it's going to matter who's throwing the ball based on the route tree you see him operating within and being successful in. You just have to be able to throw it deep.
Right. I think many were worried about
being able to just throw the ball up, know that he is going to go up and get it. That's the thing. You just throw it early. If you can get the ball out early enough, he will go make the play.
Yeah, I think many were worried about the route tree. They figured he'd just be a one-hit wonder running the 9 route all day long. But you look at the targets. I mean, the last 3 weeks, 9, and then 8 last week. So Trevor Lawrence is looking for him. Christian Kirk is still there.
Why not? Look at that build. Look at the catch radius. I mean, if you are struggling to look good, why not throw it to the big guy who can catch things that are within 7-8 feet of him? Why not get? That's the guy I would target. It's not a wonder Brendan Strange has been hitting the end zone a lot. He's a big target. If you're struggling, throw it to the bigger guys.
Exactly. And I mean, Evan Ingram is coming back, so that's going to only open up things more for him. Some people will say, well, this is the time for him to come down because Ingram's going to steal targets from him. No, it's
Ingram
not
takes
the
the
case.
underneath.
Ingram and Kirk operate underneath. What Brian Thomas is doing is he's stealing targets from Gabe Davis. That's what he's doing. And now Gabe Davis is hurt. So, I mean, there's nobody else on the outside right now. So, I mean, Christian Kirk probably will get stuck moving to the outside with Ingram coming back. And we all know Kirk isn't a monster on the outside. So, Brian Thomas is still going to keep getting these targets. Yes, Matt, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Brian Thomas, wonderful. Gabe Davis, one game wonder. One playoff game, and everyone lost their minds about this guy. He is not that great a receiver. You know who he is? Who's that dude? Could never get it right with this guy. He is Larry Fitzgerald at the end of his career. 1 week he'll put up like 25 points, and then he'll disappear for 7 weeks. From a fantasy perspective, right? Okay, not from an actual professional standpoint, but from a fantasy perspective. Okay, Gabe Davis.
I think that's even being a little.
I can't believe I said Larry
Fitzgerald was putting up
same sentence.
I know what you're getting at, though. And the fact is that Brian Thomas is here to stay. He's not somebody you're just giving away to tear up. Okay, that's not what I'd be looking exactly to do. Now, I did have a trade that came into my inbox, and I asked you about it. It was a 1 quarterback league where the guy was getting Marv and Jalen Tolbert for his Brian Thomas. Let me bring it up here quick. It was Brian Thomas. I sent it over to you so I can slide up. Here it is. Okay, so it's Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah.
It's Jalen Tolbert and Marvin Harrison for Brian Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, and Rashad Bateman. Now, the reason that I like the Marv side here is because Marv, similar to Brian Thomas, they're both super young. Okay, Marv is still a better all-around wide receiver than Brian Thomas. Let's not get over our skis here. I'm not saying that Brian Thomas is the wide receiver number 1. Marvin Harrison has the potential to be the dynasty wide receiver number 1 here. Okay, we're all excited about Malik Neighbors, of course, because of the target share. It's just insane. But Marv has a better quarterback. Let's be honest here. Kyler's a better quarterback than Daniel Jones, hands down. We don't even know that Marv knows who his quarterback's going to be next season. Because Daniel Jones is still out he's playing well the past couple weeks, but we don't know that Daniel Jones is going to finish the season that way. Kyler's going to be there next year for Marv, and they're just beginning to develop their relationship. Marv, to me, is still the wide receiver I want out of this class. And so if you can upgrade from Thomas to Marv, that's something I like doing. I don't like going from Brian Thomas to, let's say, A.J. Brown right now, who's 6 years older, okay? Yeah. So that's something that I want to avoid doing. But, and then Rashid Shaheed and Rashad Bateman, whatever. I mean, Shaheed's doing well, don't get me wrong. He's somebody that I wouldn't mind if I have him on my team, but he's not somebody that I'm openly going out to try and acquire. Sure. So I like what I've seen from Jalen Tolbert, but he's whatever too. So it's really Brian Thomas for Marv here, and I lean the Marv side, but that's one of the very few cases where I wouldn't be trying to acquire Brian Thomas for.
Yeah, so you and I were on opposite sides here, right? Because I told you I'd want to be on the Thomas side of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now there is some reservation with that, and it's not because of Marvin Harrison. It's really more because of Tolbert. Brandon Cooks is old, dude. Okay, he's on IR, and Tolbert is now showing. I don't think it was ever a question about his skill set.
No,
Tolbert, he's a good receiver. It was really more about the mental clarity and him being confident enough to actually go out and do it week in, week out, and being tough enough, right? And I think he's shown that this year. he is taking those steps. So Tolbert, I think, is a really good piece. We all know what Marvin is. I'm not saying Marvin's not a good piece. We all know what he is already. There's no point in talking about it. But Brian Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, and Bateman, I don't care about Bateman. Okay, he's going to get He's going to get a touchdown every few weeks. He's going to get a few targets every week. He's not Zay Flowers. I don't care about Rashad Bateman. But Rashid Shaheed, I don't think it matters the quarterback because of what he does. He and Thomas are very similar in that they're going to catch that deep ball, which is going to gouge points for you at a time. The difference is I think Brian Thomas being slightly younger, I think he's a better receiver. I think Rashid Shaheed's got a lot of athleticism, but I think Brian Thomas is a better receiver. I think with both of those guys coming into the deal, I just would rather have both of those guys than just Marvin Harrison. Because I believe in Tolbert. That's very speculative because I'm only going on like 2 weeks of actual data that he's been in position to accumulate the numbers. And I like Harrison, and I just look at Thomas and I look at Shaheed and I just think they're a little bit they're the kind of guys that they're going to catch touchdowns and they're also going to catch deep balls. It doesn't matter who's throwing it, and you already know I'm higher on Neighbors than I was Harrison to begin with. So a lot of that would be volume, but if I think Neighbors is more dynamic. I just do. That's just me. It's a personal thing. It's an eye test. And I think
that honestly what it comes down to here is the context in the trade. And the context is that it's a 12-team start one quarterback lineup league. Now, if it was a best ball league, I would probably lean towards your side because I would like Shaheed way, way more than Jalen Tolbert in a best ball format. So
let's do
this.
Let's have a fun bet. Okay, and all of my Baton Rouge boys are going to love this. But I will take Brian Thomas over Marvin Harrison for better stats at the end of the year. I think you would look at his stats. I'm not saying one won't have more than the other here or there, but I think when you look at fantasy numbers and stats, Brian Thomas is going to be the better receiver at the end of this year. How about that?
I'll take that one. I think Brian Thomas is going to be awesome, but I'll take Marv for the long haul.
I'm taking the plus here. So let's go Thomas, but I'm going to do it. I'm not going to take any plus minus here. We'll just do it straight up just for fun. We'll figure out the terms later.
Okay. Sounds good.
We'll make it a water bet.
Make it a water bet. I don't know how I'm going to get water down to Houston, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get into our next guy who is from Houston, and that would be Nico Collins setting the world on fire. Unfortunately, yes, there is your Texans. That's right. But unfortunately, Nico came into the game with a little testy hamstring, and on that bomb he scored on, that was awesome. It unfortunately popped the hamstring, and he is now sitting on IR for your Houston Texans. And so now we've got a situation in Houston where the other wide receivers are going to get an opportunity. Tank Dell hasn't done much. Even Xavier Hutchinson's going to get some deep looks now. So first of all, let's start with Nico, though. There's certain situations where he's actually a good buy. And so let's talk about that first, Matt.
Where I have Nico, it's kind of a bummer because he's a big point producer. I think actually you and I have him in a co-managed team that you and I manage. So it's a big loss for Nico. I mean, I never would have thought Nico was going to put up these big numbers with Diggs and Dell right out the gates. Could he have done it periodically throughout the year? Sure, but consistently like this. So that's a big loss if you had Nico and you were bought in. I'm holding Nico if I own him. There's no reason to get rid of him unless situationally that was leading my wide receiver room, and everything I have behind it, I mean, maybe I have Shaheed and Godwin and JSN. Well, it sounds good. It really does, but I don't have that like stable 25 points coming in every week that I know of, that I can bank on. So maybe I am looking to make a move at that point. If I can hold on to Nico, I'm doing everything to hold on to him. If I'm in position to buy him, yeah, maybe not this week, right? It's the first week he's out. Hey, I'm going to see how it goes with what I've got. Let that manager make a mistake this week. Let them lose. If they lose with Nico on the bench, knowing he's going to be out another 3 weeks, hit him up next week and try and get Nico for a steal if you can afford it. Because when he comes back, now it is a hamstring injury. Nico's had it in the past. It hampered him last year. That being said, if he does come back and he is on the field, look at what you get. Look at what you get. Wouldn't you like to have that dude coming back like week 10? Wouldn't that be awesome? Coming into your lineup right before a playoff push? I mean, I'm willing to pay for Nico at this point. Even okay, so I'm waiting. I'm not going to buy him this week. I know this is a buy show, but I'm not going to buy him this week. I'm going to let whoever owns him suffer this week without him, because no one's going to try and buy him right away and actually get him for the cost they think they should. Right? So I don't think a lot of deals are going to happen this week for Nico. But next week, after this happens, or maybe during the game, start negotiating that deal. Right? During the week, negotiate it. And then as that manager loses or things are bad, maybe they're willing to do something a little bit, especially if they're 4-1 or 5-0.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it right on the head with wait here. Wait a week or two.
Patience.
That most Nico owners have been doing pretty well so far, because Nico has outproduced his draft position slightly. I mean, I was trying to grab him in the second round, smashing him in the third round. So I got him in a bunch of my redraft leagues, and now I'm hurting because not only did I get Nico, but I also got Rashee Rice in a bunch of my leagues. And so now I'm just left holding the bag. And, but I know that at least Nico will be coming back. And
right
now on the teams that I don't have Nico, though, I am highly targeting him in the next coming weeks. Most of my teams are deep at wide receiver. And so if you out there have a deep wide receiver team, just wait for one of your veteran wide receivers to have a big game, whether that's Calvin Ridley or DJ Moore, or, you could go down as low as like Keenan Allen. If you're in a redraft league, they have a big game. That is the time to try,
or JSN or Zay Flowers.
JSN.
There are guys that I love that I would gladly give up right now or next week to go get Nico Collins on the faith of when he comes back. Oh yeah. I would deal Zay Flowers in a heartbeat if I could get Nico in Dynasty right now. You better believe it.
Yeah.
Hell, I'd throw a third, second rounder on it to get the deal done.
Absolutely. So now let's talk about the interim this next month for the other Houston wide receivers. We all know you love Tank Dell, and he hasn't done much so far this year. But now that Nico is out of commission for a month, are we going to see more Tank Dell? Now, they don't play the same position, because Xavier Hutchinson's probably going to come in and run those deep routes that Nico's been running. But I don't see Stroud targeting Xavier Hutchinson as much as he's targeted Nico Collins here. I mean, Nico Collins has had his lowest target total up until last week was 8 targets in week 1. And then he had double-digit targets every week since then. So some of those targets have got to go to your boy Tank, right?
Yeah. So if you picked up Xavier Hutchinson, it's not a bad grab this week. He's going to see more play time. He's going to see more snap share. But is he going to replace Nico Collins? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The targets that really matter, I say that. Xavier Hutchinson, if the Texans get into the red zone, he could get some red zone looks because he is a big body, right? That said, I would lean more towards the Dalton Schultz aspect if that's where the target would go for the bigger body. But I would say Diggs and Dell are going to see the majority of the target share going their way. If I'm big on Tank Dell because he's Stroud's one of Stroud's guys. Stroud's thrown a pick trying to get it to Tank. I would say you're going to see Diggs and Tank increase their target share and their production will go up. You'll see Xavier Hutchinson produce. Maybe he gets you a touchdown, but Dell and Diggs is where it's going to go. Diggs is buying higher, but if you can get Tank Dell on the cheap right now to replace some Nico Collins targets, I'd do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
I've got him in most, if not all, of my starting lineups going this week, whereas I had him on the bench the last few. So, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I know that when you're talking Tank Dell up this offseason, it was more the play for the long haul, just because Stephon Diggs, he's only there for one season right now.
Right.
And so Dell is still going to be there next year and going forward. And
even if Diggs were to stay, even if Diggs were to sign, a 2-year deal or another 1-year deal, Dell still is the longevity play there. Even if he takes a dip in production, say he's only putting up, and say he's hitting max at like 13, 14 points production, right? Yeah, his value is going to dip, and he'll be a wide receiver 3 for you, maybe a high, a low end wide receiver 2. But once Diggs is gone,
right,
or when Nico has a hamstring flare up, you've got the piece. So,
yes.
And let's not forget that he is Stroud's guy, right?
Right.
I'm going to play on that one because, look, that's more personal to me. My dad was a quarterback, and understanding the relationship of a quarterback and a receiver, it's just something you can't replace. It doesn't matter how good someone else is. If you have a chemistry and something that's just there, that person's going to be hit and going to be targeted when it allows over someone
Absolutely.
else. So,
yeah, I think Tank Dell reminds me of
blown coverage, and Diggs and Dell are running down the field wide open with no safety. He's going to throw it to number 3, not number 1, right? And that's my point.
Yeah. And to me, it reminds me of when Aaron Rodgers, before he had Devontae Adams, he had Randall Cobb. And there was Jordy Nelson was there, and Randall Cobb was there. And Jordy Nelson was the big body, the guy who put up the huge numbers for a couple of seasons, similar to what Nico Collins is doing right now. But then Randall Cobb was Aaron Rodgers' guy. Like he put up consistent, like you said, wide receiver 3, low end wide receiver 2 numbers. He never put up 1,400 yards, but Randall Cobb, year in and year out, he'd get you 70 catches for 900 to 1,000 yards. And that's important in these leagues where we're starting 4 or 5 wide receivers. It's important to have these guys, these types of guys on your team and in your lineups.
If you let's say a safe projection for Tank Dell would be 1,000 yards, or let's just say 900, 75 catches and 6 touchdowns. Let's just split the difference and call it 7 because I like 6 to 8. So we'll call it 7 touchdowns, 900 yards, 75 catches. It's not bad for where you're getting him at. 5th, 6th round in dynasty startups. It's not bad. You're going to get the boom. Look, he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. We're in week 6. Nico Collins is out for minimum 4 weeks. You think he's not going to score a touchdown in these next 4 weeks? Come on, man. Go get it.
Yeah. No, I like Tank Dell going forward here. Now we've got another wide receiver who's injured that we're going to discuss, and that would be Puka Nacua. Puka's been out since the beginning of the season. He popped his knee that was bothering him in preseason, and he went out and played week 1, and unfortunately it popped on him. And now he's, we still don't know. Week 8, 9, 10, we don't know exactly when he's going to be back. So is Puka somebody that you're actually looking to still buy right now, Matt? Or in what situation would you buy him?
Well, I mean, it's not even a win-loss position that would make me buy him. It's more of a what my roster looks like and what the cost is to get him. I mean, I know the cost is pretty low to get Puka Nacua right now. So, I mean, he hasn't played, and he's not going to play. So and you can get him probably fairly cheap in redraft. In Dynasty, you'll pay a bit more, but yeah, I would buy him. I would buy him actually, regardless of my situation. If I had the draft capital and I have a player or two that would make the right combination, then yeah, I would go for Puka. Shit. I mean, you and I did it. We were 1-3 going into last week when we made a deal for Puka. And I think we traded Dobbins and I don't know, Dobbins for Puka. Is that what we did?
Yeah, it was Dobbins straight up. And so that was redraft.
Done.
So, I mean,
done. But list out our running backs too, right? We have plenty of running backs in that league as well. And our receiver talent is high as well. We're just taking a chance here. It's more, and I'll just tell her, this was more of a, let's make a play and give ourselves some strength for down the road. It also puts us in a position when Puka comes back. Now we're in position right before the trade deadline to be able to move a receiver, running back, whatever the situation may call for, because we are that strong.
Yeah,
we had some bad weeks with injuries and just bad lineup set, but I would have looked at that deal in any league and said yes. It wouldn't have mattered what was happening, you know.
Right. It was a league where we started out 1-3, but I think we were second in points scored. So, man,
it was just a scheduling issue.
Yeah, it was just bad luck there, really.
Yeah.
And now Puka, yes, exactly. He gives us the opportunity to even tier up from him, or, you know, make moves at other positions to try and strengthen ourselves as a whole. And
Absolutely.
That's what you can do out there. Puka, you know, you've waited a month now for it to sort of settle down, kind of like what you were saying to do with Nico Collins. So now is the time to go out and get Puka. Some teams out there are feeling the hurt of not having him in the lineup. Puka was a guy who was wide receiver 6, 7, or 8 in Dynasty at the beginning of the season, but now, as we expected, we saw some guys move up. Ryan Thomas has come out of the woodwork. Nico Collins obviously jumped up the Dynasty rankings. Both Neighbors and Marv both have shown up. And so they both Marv was already kind of ahead of Puka, but Neighbors has obviously jumped him. So we've seen 3, 4, 5 wide receivers jump Puka Nacua to where they've pushed him down into the teens level and made him much more acquirable now from their owners. So now is the time to look at Puka, especially if you're a rebuilding team, or even if you're a contending team. So any type of team really should look at Puka Nacua right now. All right. Next up, we've got a guy who just came back from an injury and played last week, but didn't really show up. So we've got Deebo Samuel here. Now, Deebo is obviously a force to be reckoned with. He basically makes the Niners engine run. And so what are your thoughts on Deebo Samuel right now, Matt?
Yeah, Deebo's one of those, he's not a sexy buy. It's not super juicy. But if you're looking at the week that Ayuk just had, and you're looking at the way the 49ers season is going, where they're giving up leads late, he's a great buy low candidate, not just by the numbers that he's put up, being more of a roller coaster ride with the injury and not looking great coming back after the missed game from a production standpoint. Look, I just got a feeling with the Ayuk stuff. I'm more of a sell high on Ayuk and a buy low on Deebo. I feel like Deebo is not going anywhere. Ayuk could move at the deadline. I mean, we all saw the video. Well, I say we all. Most of us saw the video of the wrong colored shorts thing on a Friday practice, and I mean, it appears like the dude's just trying to make trouble, and he's more of a diva. And I'm talking about Ayuk here, so I can see him being dealt off after a few good games, a surprise big game here after all the stuff that's been happening. I would absolutely buy Deebo low here. And the other thing you got to keep in mind, he's averaging 2 to 3 carries a game, something like that out of the backfield. It's important to have there with his floor, right? Because he's getting a couple of carries. You know he's going to get you a few points just in rushing yards, and that's important to have when you're thinking about a floor. He offers that, whereas other receivers don't.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Debo is a Niner for life, and that's just Kyle Shanahan loves him, and he's going to manufacture touches for him, and he's going to get him the ball, and Jaden Reed is popping off for the Packers. Debo Samuel is that style player, and I mean, honestly, Debo's been doing it for years. Jaden Reed's just starting to do it, and so in the weeks coming forward, especially before McCaffrey comes back, Debo is going to get those rushing attempts. He'll still get the rushing attempts even when McCaffrey does come back. They'll just be a little sneakier when they do come.
Mm-hmm.
And so this Niners team is going to bounce back. They are not going to stay at the bottom. They're 2-3 right now. There's just too much talent on this roster. They're going to make the playoffs. And so we'll see from Debo as he plays tonight. I know he's listed as doubtful now. I didn't even see that. So
even more reason to buy now because he'll be cheaper.
Yeah. I mean, whoever's owning him has got to be scared, and missing that point production is big. If you're talking dynasty, you got to be a contender to want to go out and acquire him, but you could probably get him for, I mean, a couple seconds. I don't think you got to pay a first. I wouldn't pay a first, honestly, unless you've got a ton of firsts sitting in the coffin. But Debo's definitely somebody out there.
No first.
Definitely. Yeah. No, look to trade producing wide receiver, somebody like Deontay Johnson, somebody like that, where the other guy is getting the immediate production that he needs to win now. If it's redraft too, we're talking get the hook on somebody like that, so that you have Debo when it really comes time late season and into the playoffs, where Debo could win you the league, because he really is a league winning type player.
Yep.
All right, let's get to our last buy, and that would be Jalen Waddle, Miami Dolphins, and their struggling offense. We're suggesting to go out and buy Jalen Waddle here. Oh boy, this is a tough sell here. What are we going to tell our folks out there about Jalen Waddle, Matt?
I'm going to tell them to listen to you. Look, I mean, coming into the season, we were very high on positive regression for Jalen Waddle, not just in targets, receptions, but in touchdown production. But then come week 2, Tua goes down with another concussion. And we've seen what the last few weeks look like without Tua. It's not great. It's not great. It doesn't matter the targets you get and the receptions that you're able to acquire if they're not good. And the Dolphins just are not good, which makes them, all of their skilled players, buy low candidates. I know we've mentioned A-Chain in our running back buys. I mean, you can get Tyreek cheap, get him cheap. Jalen Waddle's just going to be cheaper, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I have acquired Jalen Waddle in a couple of my leagues. One is a rebuilding team, and so I went out maybe a week after Tua went down. And then in another, it was more of just a long play for the season, hoping that Tua does come back. It was after I heard some more positive reports about Tua and him actually coming back, because, geez, I tell you, if Tua doesn't come back this year, man, all of our Waddle, Tyreek shares, they're just dead in the water. Even Achane, I mean, he's struggled the last couple of weeks without Tua in the lineup. The whole offense as a whole just is putrid with Snoop Huntley running things there. And I mean, so you're really just buying into waiting for Tua to come back. If you've got the wide receiver depth and you're contending, you're okay going to go out and get him, because he is a lot cheaper than normal. I mean, you could probably get him for less than a first in certain situations right now. You could get him for a couple of seconds, or you throw the right throw the right body at the guy, something like Deontay Johnson. Again, I hate to be continuing to bring up Deontay Johnson, but I mean, his situation is Deontay Johnson. Yeah, he's going to get targets from Andy Dalton, but what is he getting him from next year? A rookie? Is he getting him from Bryce Young again? I mean, we don't know with Deontay, so that's why I'm saying to go out and shop Deontay Johnson for all of these receivers. And Jalen Waddle is immensely talented, and I do think Tyreek will still be there another year or two, but it's going to come a point where Waddle is just
the guy
better than Tyreek.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any other possible guys that you like out there, or are we just going to end it right here with Waddle? I think we can end it with Waddle.
Well, we can end with Waddle. Another guy I'm trying to buy is Olave, just because he's super cheap right now. Super cheap, and there's youth there, and from a dynasty perspective. In redraft, probably not, but in dynasty, yeah, I'm trying to get me some Olave.
Yeah, I like Olave in dynasty still. To me, he's just a younger Terry McLaurin right now. I don't see that elite ceiling from Olave that many were hoping we'd see with the connection with Derek Carr. I think some of it has to do with Rashid Shaheed's emergence, and that he's actually a better receiver than we all thought. Plus the play calling. I think they're manufacturing more touches with Shaheed. I think Shaheed has become the true chess piece there for New Orleans. And it's smart. I mean, the guy has a very good skill set. And so Olave isn't a bad buy in dynasty though, because I do think that he's going to be a solid receiver for you for years. He has the skill set to be that type of guy. I just don't see the elite level for Olave, but now it can happen.
Now his price point is going to be affordable for you to get him for what he's actually going to do for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys who bought him in dynasty, maybe a dynasty startup, and paid a third rounder for him, they're pissed because Olave isn't doing it. So yes, you could definitely go out there and acquire Olave. Maybe throw, if you're in the middle of the pack, you could trade him for Chris Godwin, right? And you're just that's just playing the long game, because Godwin, I think, is going to outproduce Olave for the rest of the season. It'll be close, but I'm just throwing names out there. Deontay Johnson, again, is somebody that just keeps popping in my head.
An easy trade asset right now. Easy trade asset.
Absolutely. All right. So remind you to smash the like and subscribe. Check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show, and at buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. We will be back with some more buys at the quarterback, tight end positions right up shortly. Never stop working.